Yeah, even former world champion Troy Bayliss giving his thoughts on it, and he's dead right when he says it's not over till it's over, and you're going to expect to see everything that Jonathan Rea has thrown at Top Rack over the course of this weekend. I was speaking to Johnny on the flight over, and he said that this is a very strange situation for him to come into the championship decider without any expectation. He obviously wants to be able to get everything he can from this weekend, but he hasn't given thought to really what it could mean to win the championship. He's just focusing on getting as many points as possible. He hasn't thought about celebrations, he hasn't thought about anything else. He's really just trying to put some pressure on Top Rack, get some good results and see what happens. But certainly we do know Top Rack's in the driving seat, but you don't want Jonathan Rea to be the man that's chasing you down.
No, but it is an unusual situation for Rea. 6 world championships, and he's been the leader coming into the final round in all of those 6 seasons. Yeah,
he's gone into that last round really with the championship not in doubt. And for Rea, this is a different situation. He also knows what it's like for Top Rack, though. This is Top Rack's first time in a world championship decider, and how's he going to react through it? On the basis of what we've seen in free practice 1 so far, Top Rack's looking pretty at ease. Another fastest lap from him there. He's chipped away a couple of tenths of a second on the last couple of laps. So for Top Rack, he's looking pretty comfortable right now.
Yeah, saw him in the airport on the way through the international journey that we've all taken to make our way here to Indonesia. And Top Rack looked as relaxed and as happy as he always does. And Razgatlioglu, well, he hasn't shown any signs of cracking under pressure at any stage this season. We've said previously the only retirements have been mechanicals or misfortune, and I don't suspect that he's going to be an easy nut to crack for Jonathan Rea this weekend either.
No, I think it's going to be really difficult, and Rea is going to have to rely on a bit of misfortune for Top Rack, because over the course of this season we haven't seen anything from Top Rack that would make you think that he would crack under pressure. And even if you think back to the last few years for him, from whenever he started really becoming a front-running rider in 2019, from I think it was Misano was that first time he had a real battle with Jonathan Rea. He doesn't put his foot wrong too often, Top Rack. We don't see too many crashes from him. He doesn't panic whenever he's in a battle with anyone. And from that sort of point onwards, he's been a real frontline, top-tier rider. And Yamaha are going to feel pretty comfortable that he's the rider that they have in their corner.
Make no mistake, Jonathan Rea is going to give it everything this weekend to try and maintain that title. You don't become a 6 times world champion without having that little bit extra when push comes to shove. That said, interesting comments in advance of this weekend where Jonathan Rea talks about not feeling the pressure to too great an extent, and Pertama saying much the same, that they don't feel the pressures on them, and that's because, frankly, it looks at the moment as though the championship is out of their hands. It's not mathematically in their hands. 3 wins for Jonathan Rea, and he'd still be relying on results to go his way from Top Rack. So they don't feel that pressure to too great an extent, or at least that's what they're saying.
Yeah, that's what they're saying, and the more you say it, the more you believe it. But I think for Jonathan, for Pertama, for that Team 65 on that side of the Kawasaki pit box, they're definitely going to feel that they want to just make sure that they tick all their boxes this weekend. And that's where the experience that they have of working together for so long, because that whole team has been together for 7 years, it does make it where it really is a case of it breeds that confidence that you're going to be able to maintain that form.
Top Rack Razgatlioglu has maintained his form throughout this 2021 campaign, and although it took him until the 3rd race of the weekend at the 3rd round of this 2021 season to take his first victory, he's had a fair number since then, and to be perfectly honest, the momentum has been with him. There's no argument against that. When Jonathan Rea has made back points on each occasion, Top Rack has been able to respond, and the winningest rider, to coin the American phrase, of 2021 has been Razgatlioglu, the championship leader. Yeah, Top Rack's been the top rider all the way through this season. He's been the rider to beat, and certainly he's had his bad luck, and that's what's kept the championship a little bit closer than it's been. So, as we head into the final minutes now, final quarter of an hour in free practice 1, it's Top Rack Razgatlioglu who leads the way 9/10 of a second ahead of this man, Michael Ruben Rinaldi, who's just made his way back into the pits. We've got Jonathan Rea and Alex Lowe still in their pit boxes. Garrett Gerloff, likewise, the majority of the top 10, in fact, with Haslam Sykes and Locatelli all in their pit boxes as well. As far as the leaders are concerned, the only 2 out on the circuit at the moment, number 45, Scott Renning, currently sits in 7th position, and this man, Axel Bassani, who's top independent in free practice 1, top independent yet again, Bassani, 137.696. And the top independent ranking, as far as riders are concerned, is one of the things of interest over the course of this final round, because you've got Garrett Gerloff on 213 points, Axel Bassani on 199, and momentum, frankly, has been with Bassani as he crosses the line to go third fastest in this session, the 137.186.
Yeah, what's interesting again, though, is he loses 0.4 of a second to Toprak in that final sector, and in that final sector, no one's gotten closer than 0.4 to Toprak, so that is where the Yamaha's working really well at this stage. Obviously, you expect to see that change as the weekend progresses, but it is no surprise that in a section of the track where you really need to brake on the angle, that the Yamaha's just got that bit of extra performance than some of the other bikes out there. So that is where the Yamaha's really strong. We've seen it so far around this track that in the middle sectors it has been a case of the Kawasaki's and the Ducatis having a little bit of an advantage, but that can all change now in the final 10 minutes of the session.
Yeah, so it's not sort of a Ducati problem in that last sector. It's more about Toprak and the way he works with his Yamaha.
Yeah, everyone's going to have a bit of a Toprak problem in that final sector, and you can see Verlo's making his way out of the pits. He's already put 11 laps under his belt, and that's good to see as well, considering the injuries that he's had over the course of the last few rounds. And hopefully for him it is a case of being back on form and back to closer to full fitness and being able to ride a little bit more uninhibited than he had been in recent rounds.
Several riders, though, waiting a fair while before coming out onto track for their second stint. Jonathan Rea among them. You'd suggest that riders might perhaps have been expected to really put in as many laps as possible as far as track familiarisation was concerned.
Well, I think that's why we saw some longer stints at the start of the session, riders going out doing 8 or 9 laps and then coming into the pits and making some changes to the bikes and then going out for these final 12 minutes. And you'd expect to see everyone stay out all the way through until the end of this session now.
Yes, KRT leaving it late to return to the circuit, as we've been saying, but a couple of other riders also out onto track. Andrea Locatelli and Tati Mercado just completing their installation laps. Not quite sure what Michael van der Mark was waving his hand about there. We might be about to see it.
Big moment there as he backshifts down in towards those ever-tightening right-handers at the end of the lap, and for Van der Mark, he's able to at least live to fight another day, and he's going to rejoin the track and still be able to set some times. The sim just coming through turn 1 down in towards 2 and 3. This is one of the tighter sections of the track, but it opens up from 3 onwards through turn 4, 5, 6. It really is opening up all the way through until we get to turn 10 at the end of the back straight.
Scott Redding's just gone across the line for a new personal best, 1:37.504 for Redding. So the standings now with just over 10 minutes remaining. Raz Gatlioglu 9/10 clear, and Naldi second fastest, Bassani third fastest, Jonathan Rea fourth, and Scott Redding fifth. A fair number of Ducatis up towards the front of the field. Yeah, and
certainly that's what Scott Redding's going to expect to see through the course this weekend, is that Ducati have the performance to be able to get to the front. He wants to be a spoiler. As it is right now, he's fifth fastest, but you'd expect to see him find some performance as we move through the sessions today. But Ducati, they can be that spoiler if the bike works and it's in that right operating window. We've seen them so strong all the way through this season. This could be one of those tracks that really does suit it, and the reason for that is we're going to have really high track temperatures. We're at 63 degrees track temperature at this point, and it's only going to get hotter through the rest of the day. If you think back to the likes of Misano, when we had high track temperatures earlier in the season, that's when we saw the best from Michael Rubin Rinaldi. If you think back to when we saw some great performance from Bassani as well, that was with the high track temperatures.
Yes, at what track temperature does the track temperature indicator start to break? Because if it's going to happen, it's going to be this weekend, isn't it? Scorching. It's uncomfortable right from the moment you wake up. It's already the temperature right up there.
Well, I think the humidity meter is definitely broken, because it's only saying 58, and it certainly feels a lot more than that, than 58%. But it is hot and sticky and difficult conditions for everyone here in Indonesia. And speaking to a lot of the riders about the challenges that they'll face this weekend, one of the big things is just getting your body to cool down after you've been out on track. That's why we're going to see the riders with their little paddling pools out the back of the garages, and they'll get straight into that once they finish the session. Bring down their body temperature, get themselves cool, and start the recovery process, because that's one of the big challenges that you have in World SBK. With 3 races in a weekend, it's really difficult for these riders. Very different challenge to what you have for the likes of MotoGP riders, where you've got Friday practice sessions, practice and qualifying on Saturday and then a race on Sunday. In World SBK, you're action all the way, and that was definitely one of the things that for Scott Redding, whenever he moved into superbike racing, it was one of those big challenges for him, because you have to lift yourself so much to go racing, but then you have to almost calm yourself down and then do it all again, and it's a big challenge for all the riders, particularly in conditions like this.
It's proper Suzuka style with the paddling pools. I think it was one of the most startling things I saw in my first season in endurance, was everyone jumping straight into the paddling pool as quickly as possible. Gives it almost a holiday atmosphere alongside the serious business of racing, so we might see a little bit of that over the course of this weekend. Looks as though Toprak's preparing himself now to go back out there. It does also mean that it's going to be physical exertion over the course of the weekend. It's a busy schedule in World SBK.
Yeah, really busy schedule, and it's a busy track around here as well. You can see that there's those fast sections at the start of the lap. That's physical to try and manhandle the bike across the track and get yourself into the right positions. You're not got too many long straights where you can really just tuck yourself in and have a bit of a rest. This is action all the way, and certainly you're going to see over the course of a 21 lap race that you're going to need to have an awful lot of concentration to avoid making mistakes, and that's one of the big challenges for the riders. Physically they can deal with that a lot because of how hard they train, and they're all prepared for that physically, but mentally as well you can't afford to make mistakes.
Well, the ones who will struggle with it the most inevitably will be the riders who've been out injured, the riders still recovering from injury. I know Chaz Davies was not fully fit by any stretch of the imagination when he went to Argentina last time out, and was struggling for race fitness as much as anything, having been off the bike clearly through that injury. He might be among the riders perhaps who will struggle to a greater extent with the physicality here.
Yeah, I remember though in Sepang, that was always one of Chaz's favourite tracks, one of the places he went really well, because traditionally his fitness has been a big advantage for him, and that is one of the areas where some riders in the past had a big advantage over others. Now pretty much everyone on the grid is super fit, and that advantage that you might have had, it does get minimised quite a bit. But if you just have that small 1% advantage, it can make the difference over the course of 3 races in the weekend.
Yes, he's not shy of the mountain passes, is he? A little bit of cycling up in Andorra.
Yeah, and you tend to see with all these riders, when you look at their social media, it's always in the middle of race weekends, or the gap between race weekends, they're training hard, they're all out cycling or hiking or running or one thing after the other, and I think here in Indonesia I've seen quite a few of them out swimming as well.
Or just before race weekends if you're Scott Redding, of course.
Yeah, and obviously for Scott, that gap between Jerez and Pertama, cycling between the 2 tracks, it was an interesting way to get himself ready, but it worked. He had a great weekend in Pertama.
Yes, anyone who'd been criticising him prior to that weekend for the decision to exert himself between 2 rounds quickly had to eat humble pie after a brace of second positions over the course of that weekend. 5 minutes to go, so we're into the final stretch now as far as hot laps are concerned. Toprak Razgatlioglu just getting up and running with his latest flying lap. 1 minute 36.260 at the moment is Toprak's time. That's the one to beat. Second fastest is with Alex Lowe's. The gap now has been cut to less than 0.4 of a second between Toprak and the rest. So the latest stint for the Kawasaki men going well. Isaac Viñales up in 3rd position with a 1:37 flat, and then Axel Bassani, Michael Ruben Rinaldi, Scott Redding and Jonathan Ray, your top 7.
Yeah, what's interesting in the last couple of laps is that we've seen a lot of riders make that step in the final sector as well. Those only a 1/10 of a second slower than Toprak in that final sector. Now, Isaac Viñales is very impressive in his lap as well to move within a second of Toprak's times.
Toprak 3/10 of a second faster than he's been before through that first sector. It is blinding his pace.
Yeah, and Toprak willing to push on now, and you'd imagine he's out there on a fresh soft tyre and that rear, and he's just trying to use it now to get a little bit of knowledge about what to expect when you put in that fresh rubber on these final laps of the session. We did see Tom Sykes had a crash down at turn 6 as well. Looks like he's been able to rejoin and hopefully able to get himself back to the pits.
Toprak Razgatlioglu, another 0.3 of a second he's found over the course of the 2 latest sectors. So 2/3 of a second now almost up after 3 completed sectors. This is going to be a blinding effort from Toprak Razgatlioglu with 4 minutes to go. Alex Lowe's at the moment is second fastest. He's going to cut the gap to Razgatlioglu at the top of the timing order, but it's not going to be for long. There goes Toprak's lap, a 1 minute 35.407. That is a stunning effort from Razgatlioglu, more than a second faster than anyone else has been, once again in free practice 1.
Yeah, I said at the start of the show that we might get down into the 34s. It looks like if anyone's it's only going to be Toprak, but he still needs to find another 0.4 of a second. But some riders are finding some pace. You can see there Leon Haslam with a good opening sector there for him to try and give himself a chance to try and improve on his fastest time. He's down in 12 fastest at the moment.
You're just making sure that Toprak's given a stretch target. That's standard practice, and it's all absolutely fine, but he's pushing towards it. Another fast first sector from Razgatlioglu with 3.5 minutes to go in FP1.
Yeah, really laying down a marker to everyone else, and Toprak very impressive with how quickly he's been able to get up to speed. We saw this earlier in the season in Most as well, a brand new track, and really in those opening couple of laps he was able to learn the track very quickly. Looks like it's been the same here.
Jonathan Ray still rooted to the pit box, and the statistics prove it along the bottom of the screen. Just 10 laps completed for Ray during this session. I said it earlier on, his running had been fairly restricted, while Toprak Razgatlioglu's out there about to pull another 0.3 of a second at least off his previous fastest time. Jonathan Ray stranded in 8th position and stranded in the pit box with work ongoing.
Yeah, and with only 2.5 minutes left, it's not too likely that he's going to get it back out. At the very least, he might manage to just get an out lap to make sure that the bike's okay for the afternoon, but that might be all that he's able to do in this session.
Toprak Razgatlioglu then over the line. Second run of the second lap of this final stint for Razgatlioglu, and he does get down into the 1 minute 34, so 1:34.985, and we're continuing to rub our eyes here in the commentary box with the alacrity with which Razgatlioglu has learned this circuit and is now pounding in the fast laps.
Yeah, 1.6 seconds clear of the rest of the field. Alex Lowe's up there in second fastest. Scott Redding 1.9 seconds off the pace. You can see there a bit of frustration probably for Jonathan Ray that he's not been able to get himself back out there after that first stint.
He was already starting on the back foot. He's going to feel even more on the back foot now. New circuit, first free practice session. Rivals storming away at the top of the timing charts, and 2.4 seconds down on him is Jonathan Ray. Now, clearly there's a tyre element to that. Clearly there's an element to which Toprak has been putting in an awful lot more laps during this session than Jonathan Ray. He's going to be on almost double the number of laps that Ray has managed by the end of this FP1. Razgatlioglu storming away then. I don't think he's got anything left in the locker to try and improve that time any further, although he does tend to be a man of surprises, doesn't he? Alex Lowe's improving on his latest lap as things stand. Likewise, Scott Redding has just crossed the line, 1:36.820. Michael Vandermark also moving up the order. He's doing a good job. Further back on the circuit, Alvaro Bautista in line to make some real progress. 1:37.3, his previous best during this session, and we pick up the Spaniard now.
Yeah, could move himself up into the top 5 here. Bautista, 6th fastest, 2 seconds off the pace, so he's there pretty much the same kind of lap times as Vinales and Axel Bassani. Scott Redding a couple of tenths of a second faster, but Alvaro with time for another lap at the end of this session.
Well, I was going to say 2.5 seconds off the pace of Razgatlioglu, because to be perfectly honest, from Lowe's in second position down, there's very little to choose between them. Lowe's with a 1:36.529. That's Garrett Gerloff, who's just come across the line with a 1:36.585. So that's 1.6 seconds for Gerloff off Razgatlioglu. But from Lowe's all the way down past Jonathan Ray, who's now relegated outside of the top 10, but as you can see, makes his way onto the circuit just to check that the machine is in working order, with only 20 seconds remaining until the checkered flag falls. But from Lowe's all the way down to Leon Haslam and Chaz Davies in 12th and 13th positions, just a second covering all of those riders.
Yeah, it is close in that second group, and what's going to be really interesting to see is what kind of progress everyone can make between free practice 1 and free practice 2, because spotting Toprak a second and a half, you kind of hope that a lot of that's just the fact that Toprak was willing to push harder than them at this stage, but we also know that the Yamaha as a package tends to work really well everywhere we've gone through the course of this season, so Toprak's going to feel with his base setting that he's got a pretty good option right from the outset, and obviously the opening laps are going to give him more and more confidence as well.
What second group is that then? Razgatlioglu is a group all on his own in free practice 1:34.985, a second and a half faster than his nearest rival as the checkered flag falls. It's Alex Lowe's who's second fastest, then it's Garrett Gerloff, Redding Vinales, Alvaro Bautista just recovering 6th place as he crosses the line, 1:37 flat for Bautista, so a couple of promising laps at the end of the session from the former world number 2. Axel Bassani 7th fastest, Michael van der Mark, Michael Ruben Rinaldi and Andrea Locatelli rounding out your top 10. Jonathan Rea completes his installation lap and he'll see the checkered flag.
Yeah, and Andrea Locatelli was the busiest rider out there as well. He's going to do 21 laps in this session himself and Tito Rabat, and Toprak put in a lot